They say betrayal feels like a knife in the back. They're wrong. It's colder, slower, and sharper, like a coin being pressed into your hand by someone you trusted, only to realize it's counterfeit after they've vanished with your future. I stood in the parking lot of our company headquarters, keys still warm in my palm, as I watched the news unfold on my phone. Quantum Rise Technologies acquired in surprise private deal. CEO Jason Cade will lead integration. CEO.Jason. There was no mention of me, David Connor, co-founder, co-architect, co-every damn thing. Not even a quote. My own company. Sold. And I wasn't even invited to the table. I thought it was a mistake. Some PR blunder maybe. So I walked inside. Walked past the same security guy who used to greet me with a nod and a, "Morning, Mr. Connor." This time his glance slid away like I was invisible. Jason's door was closed. I knocked. No answer. So I pushed it open. He was inside, sipping champagne with two guys in tailored suits. They looked at me like I was the janitor who forgot to knock. Jason didn't even flinch. "David," he said like I was interrupting brunch, "you should have called first." "You sold the company?" My voice was steady, but the pressure behind my ribs built fast. "I acquired a better opportunity. You would have slowed things down." He looked at the other men, chuckled. "You always played defense. I built this place with you. We had a 50-50 clause." "It expired last month," he interrupted. "Page 16 of the revised partnership agreement. You signed it, remember?" He was right. I had signed it. Months ago, late at night, in a pile of routine paperwork. Buried. Deliberate. I left without another word. I didn't want to explode. Not yet. But then came the final punch. I went home to find the apartment half empty. Her clothes, gone. Her charger, gone. Her favorite mug, still there, like a joke. A note sat on the counter. "David, I need something different. Jason understands me. Don't come looking." Jason. They weren't just partners in business. They were partners in betrayal. I didn't eat for 2 days. I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about that damn coin, figurative or not, that Jason had handed me over and over. Promises, contracts, trust, all fake, all shiny on the surface, worthless underneath. I thought about walking away, letting them win, leaving town, but then I remembered why we started Quantum Rise in the first place. It wasn't for money, it was for impact. We were designing tech that helped people. Predictive software for disaster response. Supply chain systems for crisis zones. That work was mine. My code. My vision. Jason was selling it to some global firm known for gutting companies and stripping their tech for private contracts. He wasn't just betraying me, he was weaponizing my work, and that was the turning point. This wasn't about a breakup. It wasn't about ego. It was about principle, about legacy, about not letting the people who lie and manipulate define the narrative. I started quietly. I reached out to an old investor, someone Jason had burned on a previous deal. He agreed to meet. Then a former employee, one who had been pushed out when she refused to falsify data. She still had documents, emails, logs. Piece by piece, I built a case, not for court, but for truth. Jason thought I'd break, that I'd crawl away in shame, but I didn't break. I learned. And when the opportunity came to strike back, not with fists, not with vengeance, but with facts, I was ready. It wasn't just about bringing Jason down. It was about exposing what people like him really are when you strip away the suits and charm. Liars, thieves, users. The kind of men who pay in counterfeit loyalty and expect the world to thank them for it. But I had something more valuable than a fake coin. I had the truth, and I was ready to spend it. I didn't call the police. I didn't sue. People like Jason operate above that level. They have lawyers in their contacts and loopholes in their contracts. Justice doesn't knock on their door with a badge. It walks in wearing a tie, holding evidence. My plan wasn't revenge, it was exposure. I started with Rachel Knox, our former senior data analyst. Jason forced her out when she refused to tweak reports to make the last investor deck look prettier. I found her working at a nonprofit now, quiet and disillusioned. When I told her what Jason had done, she didn't ask why I waited. She just opened her laptop. "He's been cooking numbers for years," she said. He thinks he's smarter than the system. We pulled everything she had, memos.code logs, internal emails that showed how Jason had falsified impact reports and exaggerated scalability projections to inflate valuation. One message even outlined how he planned to offload legacy co-founders, his words before the acquisition closed. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt focus. Next, I contacted an old investor Jason had once ghosted after securing bridge funding. Guy's name was Alan Mercer. He'd lost a six-figure sum and a lot of pride. You want to bring him down? Alan asked. I'll fund it. Just make it real. I didn't take his money, but I took his contacts. He linked me with a journalist named Nikki Sung, a business investigator with a reputation for shredding egos. I gave her the documents, the emails, the investor deck Jason used, the one with my name removed. Nikki asked me one question. Are you willing to be public about this? I paused. The truth? I didn't know if I was. I'd been humiliated, erased, lied to, but I realized that if I wanted the truth to matter, I had to stop hiding from the wreckage Jason made of my name. Yes, I said. Put my name on every word. Nikki published the story a week later. Headline, Startup Star or Master Manipulator, the hidden story behind Quantum Rise's acquisition. Within 24 hours, it went viral in every tech outlet. Investors started asking questions. One of the acquiring firm's compliance officers launched an internal audit. Their stock dipped 7% in 3 days. Jason called me that night. You think this changes anything? He snapped. You're just bitter. No, I said calmly. I'm just not silent. He cursed and hung up. I saved the voicemail. It would come in handy. But I wasn't done. I launched a public archive called Open Signal, a platform for whistleblowers and tech startups. Anonymous uploads, verified documentation. Within a month, 10 more stories popped up. Fake patents, co-founder buyouts, investment fraud. Jason's name came up more than once. Meanwhile, my own new project started to grow, quietly, ethically. I partnered with 2 engineers who had been pushed out of similar companies for refusing to compromise. We didn't chase headlines. We chased function. Real solutions for disaster logistics. The work I'd set out to do years ago. The more we built, the more support we got. From ex-employees, from ethical investors. Even from people I'd never met who wrote things like, I thought I was alone. Now I know I'm not. And then came the breaking point. Jason was scheduled to speak at a major tech conference. Keynote slot. The night before his talk, Nikki released part 2 of the investigation. This time she had interviews. My testimony, Rachel's testimony, screenshots from his Slack history, and one very telling video. Jason bragging during a company retreat about gutting the fat before going public. Conference organizers pulled his keynote an hour before he went on stage. The company he'd sold Quantum Rise to, they severed ties 2 days later, citing breach of ethics. He lost his golden parachute. I watched the fall from a distance. No gloating, no public statements, just quiet observation. The world saw the version of Jason I'd known behind the curtain. One day I got an email. No subject, no signature. Just, you destroyed everything. I hope it was worth it. I didn't respond, because it was worth it. Not for the damage he suffered, but for the people he wouldn't harm next time. For the startups that would learn from my story. For the ones who now knew what betrayal looked like in a suit and smile. I saw Elise only once more. Months later, in a grocery store of all places, she walked past me like I was nobody. Maybe I was, to her. But I smiled, because to myself, I had become somebody again. Not through anger, not through revenge, through rebuilding, through standing up when everything in me wanted to stay down. Betrayal isn't a tragedy, it's a choice. And how you respond to it, that defines who you'll be on the other side. The dust had settled, or so I thought. Jason was out, professionally, publicly, reputationally. Elise had vanished into some version of her new life. Quantum Rise was a husk being restructured under a new name. And me? I was rebuilding, slowly, quietly, with a team that actually believed in the mission. But when you expose rot in one place, you start to smell it everywhere. 2 months after the last article went live, I received a message through Open Signal. It came from a disposable email address. No subject, no name, just one line. You only uncovered the middleman. Attached was a spreadsheet, no explanation. At first glance, it looked like internal payment logs, wire transfers, offshore accounts, project names. Most entries were familiar, but not all of them belonged to Quantum Rise. Some names were linked to startups I had no connection to. Healthcare tech, defense logistics, even education software. They all had one thing in common. Each had suffered sudden, inexplicable acquisitions, founder exits, or data breaches over the past 2 years. And there, buried near the bottom, was something I recognized. A code label Jason and I had once used for early research trials. Orca 7. It had nothing to do with our public work. That code had been reserved for government proposals, sensitive, confidential, and never released beyond our secure servers. Except now it was on a file tied to a private defense firm in Virginia. Something deeper was happening. Jason hadn't acted alone. He was just a puppet. So I did what I'd learned to do best. I traced the trail. The shell companies connected to Orca 7's transfer had ties to SentryPath, a shadowy analytics contractor working with security accelerators. Their specialty? Identifying vulnerable startups with scalable tech, then acquiring or hollowing them out under new owners. Government adjacent, no oversight. Too small to draw attention, too big an impact to ignore. Rachel helped me sort through the data. This isn't just corporate theft, she said. They're funneling innovation into closed networks, selling it before it ever reaches the public. My stomach turned. Our original project, designed to help FEMA allocate disaster aid in real time, was now listed as part of a predictive threat mitigation module used by private border enforcement teams, militarized, hidden. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about control. If Jason was the thief, SentryPath was the fence. And if I exposed Jason and survived, maybe I could survive this too. But this time, it wouldn't be enough to go public with documents. These weren't flashy tech bros chasing headlines. These were men in conference rooms without windows, signing NDAs before they even introduced themselves. I reached out to Nikki again. "What you sent me," she said after reviewing the files, "is radioactive. If we publish without verification, we'll get buried." "I don't need to destroy them," I said. "I just need to drag enough light into the room that they scatter." So we looked for a crack. It came in the form of a whistleblower, a former SentryPath contractor who had been fired after flagging internal ethical violations. He was willing to talk, but only anonymously and only if I met him first. We met at a rest stop outside Richmond. He didn't give his name, just a stack of encrypted drives and a simple warning. They're watching anyone who tries to follow the money. If they know you're digging, they'll shut you down legally, socially, financially. I didn't blink. Let them try. Back home, I decrypted the files with Rachel. Inside were project logs, internal messages, task memos with blacked out names, and confirmation that at least 5 startups had been dismantled after showing unsanctioned innovation. Each had quietly settled lawsuits. NDAs, no one talked. Most founders disappeared from the tech scene, and there, at the center of it all, a name I hadn't heard in years, Harlan Vex. He had been Jason's mentor back in our university days. Venture capitalist, former defense advisor, always lingering behind deals that never quite made sense. Now he was listed as strategic advisor to SentryPath. Everything connected. Jason hadn't stolen the company for himself. He'd been promised a seat at a bigger table. The betrayal had layers. I sent Nikki the verified package. She looked at it like it was a live grenade. "Publishing this could burn half the investor ecosystem in DC," she said. "You sure?" "They used me. They used my work. I'm not asking for fire. I'm asking for light." She didn't publish everything, just enough. A piece called "The Innovation Pipeline No One Talks About." It didn't name SentryPath directly, but it traced the pattern. How startups with useful technology suddenly vanished. How government grants got rerouted. How certain names kept appearing in the background. It spread like a warning flare. Within weeks, journalists started digging. Congressional aides requested documents. A few tech founders quietly reached out with their own stories. Whispers grew into a current. But Harlan Vex? He stayed quiet. Too rich to be reckless. Too seasoned to react. Which meant one thing. He was waiting for me to step forward fully. To name him, to strike first. I didn't. Not yet. Because now I had his attention. And men like Vex don't send threats. They send offers. It didn't take long for the invitation to arrive. No signature, no name. Just a date, time, and location. A private conference suite at the Wilmont Hotel, top floor. The message ended with a line I didn't need to read twice. This is not a threat. It's an opportunity. HV Harlan Vex didn't chase people. If he wanted a meeting, it meant I was already in his plans, or in his way. I told Rachel and Nikki I was going. Neither of them liked it. He's not the kind of man who makes offers unless he's already bought the outcome, Rachel said. Record everything, Nikki warned. He'll never say anything illegal, but he'll imply everything. I walked in with nothing but a digital pen recorder in my pocket and clarity in my mind. Vex was already seated when I arrived, posture relaxed, hands resting on a leather case in front of him. He didn't stand. He didn't smile. David Connor, he said, as if confirming that I was real. You've been busy. You've been quiet, I replied. Sometimes silence is the only intelligent response to chaos. He gestured for me to sit. I didn't move. He opened the case. Inside was a neatly arranged dossier, my name on the tab, printed documents, financial summaries, a breakdown of OpenSignal's user activity. You think you've uncovered something, he said, but you've only seen the surface. The stories you're telling the public, they're too clean, too binary, villains and heroes. The truth is much more complicated. Enlighten me. He nodded slightly. You believe you're saving innovation from being stolen, but what you call theft, others call prioritization. There's no shortage of ideas in the world, David. There's a shortage of control. And you want that control. I manage it. I keep unstable technologies from reaching unstable hands. I ensure scalable systems land in environments where they can be useful, not idealistic. I looked at the file in front of him, my entire life, dissected, cataloged, analyzed. You're spying on me. I'm investing in understanding you. Same thing we do with markets, trends, people. He slid another file across the table. Thicker, marked with a red tab. This is what I'm offering. I opened it. Inside was a proposal. Funding, office space, staff, a new company, fully backed. My new platform accelerated. My algorithms applied to humanitarian logistics with dual sector adaptability. All with one condition. No public statements. No more leaks. You work from the inside now. With us. I closed the folder. You watched your protege gut my company, steal my life's work, and burn bridges behind him. He was a test. You passed. He failed. So now I get his seat? Vex leaned back. You're smarter, more disciplined. And unlike Jason, you understand the consequences of fire. I stared at him for a long time. His eyes didn't move. The silence wasn't intimidation. It was calculation. He wasn't trying to scare me. He was betting I'd take the deal. You think I came here for a paycheck? I said. No, he replied. You came to see how far this goes. Now you know. And the question isn't whether you approve of the system, it's whether you want influence in it. I want truth, he chuckled. Then you're in the wrong business. I stood up. I built my platform to give people like me a voice. And you'll still have it, but now it echoes into the right rooms. I didn't answer. I walked out, heart pounding, not from fear, but from temptation. For a split second, I understood the seduction. Resources, reach, protection. If I took the offer, I could scale faster than ever before, reach every vulnerable startup before Vex's people did. But at what cost? Back at my office, I listened to the recording. Every word calm, every phrase careful, not one sentence could convict him. But the implication was clear. He didn't want to silence me. He wanted to absorb me. The next morning, I made my decision. I uploaded the entire audio file to a secure server, created a new page on OpenSignal titled The Quiet Offer. I didn't name Vex. I didn't reveal the meeting. I just posted the transcript, word for word. The post exploded within hours. Founders, investors, and watchdogs began sharing it like wildfire. No one needed names. The style, tone, and implications were enough. Everyone who had been in the room with people like Vex recognized the language. It wasn't the smoking gun, but it was the pattern, the shape of the shadow that had lingered over the tech world for years. 2 days later, my servers were hit with a massive denial of service attack. OpenSignal went dark for 9 hours. We traced the attack back to a contractor in Zurich, 3 degrees removed from a SentryPath affiliate. Rachel looked at me with a grim smile. "Congratulations," she said. "You're officially on the list." "I was always on the list," I replied. "I just made it public." That week, OpenSignal received more whistleblower uploads than the previous 3 months combined. I knew we'd stirred the nest. I also knew we were being watched, followed, cataloged. But the truth was moving now. Not in headlines, but in momentum. The illusion of control was breaking. A few nights later, I got a handwritten letter. No threats, no insults, just 2 lines. "You'll either evolve or be erased, your choice." HV, I smiled. Not because I was unafraid, but because I'd already made my choice. I always thought if I brought the truth into daylight, things would get better. I was wrong. The week after I published The Quiet Offer, the backlash came fast, and not from where I expected. Investors pulled out from my current project, citing concerns over reputational risk. A speaking engagement I had lined up vanished overnight. The hosting organization sent me a polite email. "Given recent events, we've decided to pivot our programming in a different direction." Rachel called it coordinated isolation. I called it exactly what it was: pressure. This wasn't a lawsuit. It wasn't violence. It was a slow erosion. Credibility, access, visibility. Everything I'd rebuilt after Jason's betrayal was being disassembled piece by piece, quietly, efficiently. But for every door that closed, another opened. A message came in through OpenSignal. No subject, no name, just a burner link. Normally, I wouldn't have clicked, but this one carried a short note. "Not everyone at the table agrees with Vex." The link led to a drive full of documents, internal memos, contractor rosters, deployment strategies. At the center, a name I didn't expect. Michael Alden, former CTO of a federal innovation task force. Resigned 3 years ago, allegedly for personal reasons. According to these files, Alden had been monitoring SentryPath's reach for months. He'd been warning agencies about its infiltration into national security projects and getting ignored. Attached was his number. No alias, no encryption. A bold move, which meant one of two things. He was desperate or very confident. I called. He answered on the second ring. "I was wondering when you'd see that," he said. "Why send it now?" "Because you made it clear you're not for sale. That makes you rare. It also makes you dangerous." Vex isn't just buying influence. He's consolidating infrastructure. You're saying this is bigger than acquisition fraud. I'm saying it's systemic. They're not just targeting startups anymore. They're embedding into public systems, emergency management, healthcare optimization, even AI forecasting models. I paused. "What do you need from me?" "Keep doing what you're doing, but stop acting like a rogue operator. You're building chaos. We need to coordinate." That word, coordinate, set off alarms in my head. That's what Vex had tried to do too. Control the flow, set the limits. Alden must have sensed my hesitation. "I'm not asking you to stop. I'm asking you to stop getting picked off. You want this network to survive? Then treat it like what it is, a counterforce, not a blog." The call ended with a simple agreement. I'd meet him. Neutral location, no handlers. I flew to Denver the next day. We met in a public workspace, no introductions, just 2 laptops and a shared drive between us. Alden was intense but calm. He moved like a man used to hiding in plain sight. He walked me through their internal map, an entire web of influence tracking firms like SentryPath, some with deeper ties, others acting as proxies. Most weren't illegal, but they were all unethical. They bet on silence, and he said, "You broke that. Now they'll try to discredit you, isolate you, or absorb you, in that order." He showed me a list of names. Founders, engineers, contractors, people like me who had pushed back and disappeared into irrelevance. Some had been blacklisted, others bought out. A few were still fighting, but underground, scattered. They need someone who hasn't folded yet, Alden said. Someone loud. You want me to lead some movement? No, I want you to anchor it. You're already the symbol. Might as well make it strategic. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure I wanted to be anyone's symbol. But when I got back, the damage to my current project was worse. We'd lost 3 more funders. Rachel was holding the team together, but barely. And then came the final straw. Nikki called. Her editor had pulled her off the Vex story, not because of pressure, but because of executive realignment. A sanitized phrase. She was reassigned to cover tech product launches. They're cutting the voice, she said flatly, bit by bit, like we were never here. I felt it then. Not anger, not fear, something colder. Resolve. They weren't just silencing me. They were trying to erase the entire pattern. If no one remembered how Jason operated, how SentryPath consolidated, how Vex offered silence in exchange for power, then the machine would just reset. Find new targets. New cover stories. That night, I made a decision. We launched Phase 2. It wasn't a leak. It wasn't another expose. It was a platform shift. OpenSignal transformed from a whistleblower archive into a real-time observatory, a system for tracking suspicious acquisitions, shell entity formations, and behavior patterns in real time. I called it Glassline because shadows hate glass. We invited vetted contributors, engineers, ex-intelligence analysts, ethical investors, everything anonymized, every entry fact-checked, no speculation, just data, and we made it public. No paywall, no clickbait, just the truth, clear and searchable. The first week, the site crashed 3 times from traffic. The second week, we had over 40 submissions from around the country. By the end of the month, we had our first direct acknowledgement from a federal oversight committee. Quiet, off the record, but real. And then something I never expected. A video. Anonymous. Uploaded directly to our servers. Masked voice. Blurred image. But the message was clear. You've forced them to change tactics. That means you're winning. But it also means they'll come for what you love most. It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. They weren't trying to scare me. They were warning me. So I asked myself, what did I love most? And the answer hit like a weight I hadn't felt in months. Truth, integrity, and the people willing to risk everything for both. And that meant one thing. I wasn't done. Not yet. Glassline was no longer just a tool. It had become a beacon, and that made it dangerous. Within 6 weeks, it had identified 7 suspicious startup acquisitions, flagged 2 data manipulation schemes, and exposed an unusual surge in offshore incorporations linked to a government-adjacent procurement firm. The platform worked, it worked too well, and then it started to bleed. The first incident was subtle. One of our internal validators, an analyst named Leo, vanished from our communication thread. Not a word, no resignation, just gone. At first, we thought it was burnout. 2 days later, he sent Rachel a cryptic text. Don't trust internal email. Wiped clean. Tell David I'm sorry. We checked his logs. Someone had accessed his machine remotely and erased his entire contributor history, not just on our servers, on his own hardware. Whoever did it knew exactly where to look. Then came the breach attempt. A coordinated effort hit our servers at 3:17 a.m., targeting our anonymized upload channels. They didn't succeed, but they got close enough that we had to shut down the system for 24 hours and rebuild every layer of encryption. Rachel didn't sleep. I barely did. Whoever was coming for us wasn't improvising. They were professionals. Harlan Vex hadn't gotten louder, but his reach had. We moved our operations, distributed backups, external key vaults. I burned through half of our remaining funds securing legal shields and digital countermeasures. But I knew one thing with certainty. If they were trying this hard, we were in their blind spot, which meant we had leverage. But leverage only matters if you know how to use it. So I started looking closer at the whistleblowers we'd gathered through Glassline. Some were anonymous, others were ghosts from the same ecosystem Vex operated in, Contractors, advisors, data scientists. One name kept appearing in threads of comments, flagged datasets, and submission patterns. User, Ledge Tracker 17. He never identified himself, but his uploads weren't like the rest. They weren't leaks. They were counter operations, behavioral models, target mapping, and more recently, movement tracking. Not of firms, of people. Specifically, us. He had traced at least 3 surveillance patterns directed at Rachel, 1 at Nikki, and 2 at me. When I messaged him directly, he replied within an hour. You think you're fighting Vex? You're not. He's a storefront. The deeper layer isn't buying influence. They're replacing it. I asked him to meet. He refused, but he offered something else. A location tag in upstate New York, near a property listed under a trust connected to SentryPath's parent shell. It wasn't a lab. It wasn't an office. It was a server farm, off the grid, no corporate signage, no visible security. I brought the coordinates to Alden. He didn't blink. We've heard rumors, he said, but if what's there is real, it's not just about business anymore. That kind of server architecture means behavioral modeling at national scale. Infrastructure? Infiltration. He offered a joint visit with a few trusted federal contacts. I refused. Too slow, I said. They'll wipe it before you finish the paperwork. So I went with Rachel. 2 laptops, 1 passive signal capture tool, and a fallback protocol that uploaded all gathered data to 4 independent mirror servers across 3 countries. We parked 500 feet from the perimeter and waited for the signal. It came, stronger than expected. Encrypted beacons transmitting every 12 minutes, same pattern used in active surveillance operations. Rachel ran decryption on the fly. When the data resolved, she looked up at me. They're tracking startup founders. Hundreds, possibly thousands. How? Social behavior mapping, predictive modeling, ties to bank records, communication metadata. They're not just watching, they're forecasting risk. Risk in this case meant potential resistance, innovators unwilling to be bought, whistleblowers in progress. People like me. We didn't breach the facility, we didn't need to. We got what we came for. That night, I uploaded the documents under a new tag on Glassline, Operation Predictive Silence. We didn't mention Vex. We didn't claim criminal conspiracy. We simply showed the network and let the public follow it. It was enough. The media caught wind within hours. 3 senators issued public statements within 2 days. One called for an emergency oversight hearing into private sector surveillance partnerships. For the first time, the conversation wasn't about one corrupted executive. It was about the system, and then came the cost. The night after the post went live, I came home to find my apartment door open. No sign of forced entry, nothing stolen, nothing broken. But my personal laptop, my non-operational, personal use-only machine, was sitting on the kitchen counter, and on its unlocked screen, a single text document. You won't get another warning. No signature, no threats, just a promise. Rachel wanted to shut everything down. Nikki offered to move operations offshore. Alden asked if I wanted to step back and let his team take it forward. I considered all of it, and I said no, because if I stepped back, they'd call it burnout. If I shut down, they'd call it overreach. If I disappeared, they'd call it closure. No, I wasn't done. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want justice. I wanted memory. I wanted accountability. I wanted a world where people couldn't profit off shadows while pretending to serve the light. So I wrote one more post, title, Let Them Watch. It wasn't a leak. It wasn't an accusation. It was a declaration that we weren't hiding, that we saw them, that we would not forget. And when I hit publish, I knew 2 things for sure. They weren't going to stop, and neither was I.